Hello everybody. It is good to see you guys. It is Friday. I'm sorry I was a little late. Hi Ruth and Joan. Terry, hello. Hi Tori, good to see you. Mickey, Linda. Hello to Tim. I still haven't been to the post office. So tell Tim the package is coming at some point. Hi, Shu. Hi, Barbara Clark. Hey, Werner's Grand Jessica. Good to see you. Sorry. Hi, Peggy. Sorry, my throat's a little wacky. The fall dust and the extra dust that is happening out here is crazy. Hi, Joni. Oh, you just drove through? That would have been nice to be able to meet you in person. I hope he does, because first of all, I've got to figure out where I put him. You know, that's one of the issues. I got to figure out where I put. Anyway, no biggie, right? Be a surprise sometime. I always love it when you leave a comment, and Linda, when you tell me what Tim's doing and what you guys have done together. That's always neat. I always like that. Anyway, okay, sorry I'm a little bit late. I'm a little bit hoarse and froggy and congested, but we're gonna get after it, shall we? I did stream earlier this week for a little bit, kind of an impromptu. Well, it was impromptu. It wasn't kind of, it was. And I finished painting, creating, whatever you want to say, the little house, the little gnome house. And so here is what it turned out to be. And it's decorated and it looks gnomish, I think. And so we're ready to move on. Also, this week, thank you. Thanks. Hi, Cheryl. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in ages, Cheryl. Good to see you in the chat. I hope you're all doing okay. Sorry, there's going to be a lot of throat clearing in this stream, so if that bothers you, take off now. Just saying. This week, I also got my sewing room finished as far as being organized and stuff put away, and so I thought I would take you on a tour into my sewing room because I thought you might enjoy seeing that. Okay, so let me get this. Okay, now you're going to have to ignore all the reflections and all the garbage that's going on around the room, but this is the best way I have to show you because I can't really take a camera in there and show it to you. So this is the entrance to the sewing room, and it's in the opposite end of the house from where I'm streaming. So yeah, that's why when I say I'll be right back, I got to go trucking down to the other end of the house because this is where the sewing stuff is. At least I can find it now, so that's good. This little scrubby stuff here in the bottom of the doors, that's from a puppy dog that grew up here and enjoyed marking things, scratching to get in and out of doors and all that. And so what is on the doors here, these are from a class. So this is how to write with your sewing machine. And so this is my personal favorite one. We are angels, and when someone breaks our wings, we simply continue to fly. On a broomstick, we are flexible. This one is, there is vitality, a life force, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all time, the expression is unique. And that was by Martha Graham. This one over here is one of my very favorite Brian Andreas quotes. He said, "In my dream, the angel shrugged and said, quote, 'If we fail this time, it will be a failure of imagination.' And then she placed the world gently in the palm of my hand." I love that. So anyway, what I have going on here, this is straight across from the front door coming into the house. And so therefore, I didn't want people to be able to just look straight in there. So I put curtains that are attached at a rod at the top. They're sheer curtains, but they're translucent. A rod at the top and a rod at the bottom. And then I put some lace to gather them in. So it didn't look like you couldn't have, hi Carla. So it didn't look like you couldn't come in there at all. But I didn't, if I'm working on a project, I didn't really want it to be on display for everybody. Oh, Cheryl, I hope you get better and better. And then this door hanger that's on here is from a quilt shop in Paducah, Kentucky when we were there a few weeks ago. And it says, "Please do not disturb sewing in progress." And I love that. So I hung it on the door. On the other side of the door, both of these doors open up, but this one is more stationary. This is the primary door that opens up. And on the other side of the door handle going into that room, I have a bell on a red ribbon. Okay, so coming into the room, so I've come in through the doors, and so this is to the right of the door when you come in. These are the pieces that, if you've been watching me for very long, you know the story of these. These are an exploration in color, and yeah, there's a whole thing behind that. But anyway, so I have those hung on the doors. They're hung up with clear fishing line that goes over the door, and there's a little tiny command hook on the inside of the door, so the fishing line hooks around the hook. These are cabinets. These were all built in. And when you open the top door, there's a couple of shelves in there. The ones down here, which are pretty long shelves, are pretty long doors. Those have open drawer. It's kind of an open shelf that slides out. And then these are cabinets with shelves in them. I'm not used to having everything behind doors, and you'll see as I go around the room, you'll see why. And so I'm kind of having to make sure that I know what's behind the doors and so forth. There are two big drawers here that are sectioned off into, keeping track of my supplies and stuff, the little stuff, marking stuff and things like that. Everything that has to do with fabric and sewing is in this room. And then there are two more sections of cabinets underneath there, and those have large pull-out. I guess this one has the large pull-out drawer. The other one, or shelf that pulls out. This one I think just has a shelf. I can't remember. And I just did it. These are all baskets that I have or inherited that I put up on the top. And so if I need to use them, I can get them down and use them. Hi, Dorothy. And then this cabinet top is, I'm trying to keep it available so as I'm working I have space that I can put things on, Okay. Then coming on around the room, sorry, I'm taking it off camera just so I can make sure I'm going the right direction with the swiping. So this is where we just were. So coming on around the room, this is my sewing table. And this is family photos that I put up, with the exception of this is my dog from when I was little. But she's family, you know. Anyway, there's a couple of pieces that I made from classes. Hopefully you guys can see. I know I'm very jiggly. This is a Tiny Tears doll that was my doll when I was a little girl. And she's still in pretty good shape, so she's decorating my room because I don't know where else to put her. This is a piece of art, fabric art with a woven background that I did about me. And I don't know that you can, I don't know. Yeah, it has polymer clay tiles around it with thanks stamps into the polymer clay tiles and so forth. This is this piece right here is a wooden puzzle that my dad made. It has all the pieces except for the little piece on the very front of the train, and that got lost somewhere. I had glued this together a long time ago, and I just decided to put it on the wall, so I did. This is a piece of fabric art here. I did a whole series on kid art, and this is a piece that's from a drawing that my granddaughter, who is now a mother, but this is a drawing that she did, and the lamp kind of blocks it a little bit, but this is a drawing that she did on a piece of notebook paper, and then I translated it into fabric exactly the way she did it, and her signature is down here behind the lamp also. And so I did everything exactly the way she did. I took a little liberty with the color, but other than that, that was a piece that she did. Let's see, this is going on around the room. So this is an area where I can set up my ironing board and not have it in the way, but I also can take it down, and I have a space for the irons, and the ironing board just leans up against the wall back here. This is a built-in unit also with 3 great big drawers that pull out, which I'm not sure what those were for, but I've used them to store big stuff. Like stabilizers and scraps, my scrap box and stuff like that. There's a little stack of plastic drawers on the top of that. And then I have some other miscellaneous stuff that I'm just storing there for now. Magazines and stuff that I'm going through. Because I'm going through all the magazines that I have, and I'm pulling out only what's interesting to me, getting rid of the magazines, and then I'm going to file all the articles that are interesting to me. But I'm not keeping all these magazines because I had a lot of them. And then as I go on around the room, there's a wall right here. You can't really see it, but there's a wall right here. So on that wall, I have all my embroidery hoops hung up, and that's pretty much what's there. Starting from here and going on around, this is all fabric pieces that I've made. And these are some of my dolls that are back here that I've kept. I got rid of a lot of my dolls, but I kept those. Oh, another thing I was going to show you here. This little piece right here, there's my doll. This is my granddaughter, the one who made that little kid art thing. This is when she was, I don't know, 18 months or something. This is her big brother. And then I have another one over here, which is behind this lamp right here. And that's the other brother. But these are popsicle sticks that were glued together. Her mom did this. Their mom did that for me for Christmas, or for us for Christmas one year. And glued the popsicle sticks together. and gave the kids crayons or whatever, and you can see the artwork. And then they signed the back of them, and I've had those for a really long time. And so I'm going to request this year for Christmas that her little kids would make me something similar, because I would love to have those. Anyway, okay, so moving on around the room, these are all the fabric pieces that I put up. So this is my Phoenix quilt, which is extremely meaningful to me. And it's a big piece. You can kind of imagine how big that is. This piece, this one, and this one are all done on the embellisher. This one right here, let me get a pointer. This one right here is when my son moved to California in 2000, I guess it was, I don't know exactly what year this happened, but there was a fire out there, and it was pretty close to where he lived. And this is up at the top of a really steep hill. It's called the Griffith Observatory. And so the fire was on the back side of that mountain. And so the fire at night, this is what it looked like. And this is what a mother does when she feels helpless. She makes art. And so I did a silhouette of the skyline of the Griffith Observatory against the fire. And there was a lot of smoke, so there's smoke up here. But this was all done on the embellisher and then machine stitched on top of it. This one right here, this is also done on the embellisher. The background is done with the embellisher, and then the silhouette with the leaves and a little bit of machine stitching in the background, and also to decorate it a little bit more. And then this one right here, all of this is done on the embellisher, and it was sunset. And so I really enjoyed doing that one. And then, oops, sorry. This one is also done on the embellisher. So the background is all the embellisher. A lot of really sparkly, crazy threads in there. A lot of these are classes that I did. This is more kid art pieces here. This was a piece that one of my grandsons did. And I translated it exactly the way he did it, and into fabric and thread. This was one that the other grandson did, and so I have their signatures. I know you can't see it very well, but this is how he signed it. And this one over here was the other grandson and how he signed it, because I always had them sign their work. This is a little fabric piece that I did on stream one time. That's Muppet. And so I hung that up. This little cat was another piece of kid art, but I don't remember if that's one of the grandkids or what. I don't know where I got that. These pieces, this one, let's see, this one, and then there was another one that was hanging up over the windows. Those are all from a class on color theory. This is done on the embellisher, so that whole piece is done on the embellisher. And I guess that's pretty much the main stuff. This was a class online. This is also done on the embellisher. So a lot of embellisher work on this wall. This is from those two and this one are from the Mandala Madness course. And okay, that's it. This is a replica, a quarter size replica, a quarter scale carousel horse that Clausman carved and I painted, and so I put it in here just mostly because it's the safest place I can put it. Have it up high. The legs are quite fragile on it. The whole thing is made out of basswood, but it's pretty fragile, so it needs to be up high. So it's on top of this cabinet. This cabinet has more supplies in it. This is all my hand stitching stuff. This is where the irons live right here. This is all ironing, pressing things. And so that's that cabinet. This little thing right here, that's a Christmas ornament. It's a three-sided Christmas ornament. That's my granddaughter, and the two boys are on the other two sides. But that is something they gave me one year for Christmas. Those are my favorite things to get for Christmas, is things that have to do with the kids or things that they've made. Those are my favorites. This is my cutting table right here. That's up against the one door, and I think there's the cutting table from a different angle, so you can actually see it. So that's my cutting table. It has a pressing surface and then a big self-healing mat on the top. And these are my rulers here. These are my cutting rulers and a smaller cutting mat. And this is patterns in this box. It's a long skinny box. It fits under there. These are extra little things that I can use for pressing, and then just some other miscellaneous stuff that I don't know what to do with yet. This little thing right here is a class also that we did. Anyway, I think that was it. That is it. Okay, so my sewing room is pretty complete now. So I've actually done a couple of sewing things in there. And so that's the story of that. I was just looking through the where is your stash? It is, I cut it into to about a quarter of what I had, and so it fits in those cabinets, the ones that I showed you to start with, the ones that are built in. So that's where it is. But I cut it way, way, way down. Believe me, Goodwill got a lot of donations. So anyway, I've used it a little bit and I feel pretty good about how it's working. I just have to, pay attention to where I am and what I'm doing. Okay, so it's not a super big room, but it is very efficient as long as I use things and put them back. And that is my philosophy, and it's the same thing in here where I am. I don't have this totally set up yet. You think it looks like I'm set up because of this. Yeah. No, it's not completely set up. Once I get everything set up, I'll give you a tour of this room. But my philosophy is, and I am sticking by it, and that is that everything has to have a place to live. And if it doesn't have a place to live, I can get it out and use it, but when I'm done, it needs to go back to its home. And if it doesn't have a home, it needs to move out. So I have gone by Goodwill a couple more times and I'm not taking carloads of stuff. I'm now taking bags full. And that's all. So thank you, Joan. All right. So I am trying to keep my throat a little bit wet because it's a little bit irritated from the dust and stuff. Okay, so that's one of the things that I have been working on. The other thing I thought, because what we're doing is I'm taking you through this process of creating this journal bit by bit as I'm planning it and making it. I'm taking you through my thought process because I thought that might be interesting to you. So we're going to do a little bit on this, not much, a little bit on the journal, and then we're going to go back to the Christmas card. Your kitchen dining room is your there's a hers and mine, huh? Yeah, well, it's all mine, unfortunately, but fortunately. Okay. So what we did on whatever day I was here, a couple days ago, Thursday, Wednesday maybe. Anyway, this is the cover for the journal that I'm doing for the holidays. And I decided that I would take the fabric I showed you before. It was Tim Holtz fabric, I think it's Eclectic Elements, and it's just lots of text. It's called Clippings, and he does that let's see. He does the clippings in paper also. Here, this. So this is done in paper, sticker form, and it's clippings from different kinds of text and so forth. And he did the same thing in fabric. And so it's just everything that has all of the text that has to do with the holidays and Christmas in particular. And because they're thin strips, I cut out a section of it, and I put Steam-A-Seam Light, the Steam-A-Seam 2 in the light version, which means that it has paper on both sides of the glue sheet. And so you peel off one side, one piece of the paper, which is parchment paper, peel it off, and you can lay whatever it is you want on the glue, and it's pressure sensitive, and so you can lay it on there and it won't move around. So I did that, and then I cut out the section of text. And then I ironed it, so that made the glue permanent on the fabric. But there was still a sheet of parchment on the opposite side, on the one remaining sticky side. And so once it cooled off, then I cut the text into strips, so they were straight strips. But because they are narrow, I was able, and the curve here was gentle, I could lay it down and shape it and put it over the join between the sky and the ground. And then I used an iron, covered it with a press cloth, and ironed it, and that made it permanent. Okay? So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to stitch that in place. Although they tell you that Steam-A-Seam is permanent, I don't trust it. I have trust issues. That's obvious. So let me get my sewing machine. I do have one sewing machine in this room with me. It's my workhorse machine. If I'm going to do a lot of sewing, I will take this sewing machine back to the sewing room. because this is truly my workhorse of a machine. The other one that I have, both of these machines are really old, but the other machine is the first generation of the Bernina embroidery machines, and it's a good machine. I got rid of the embroidery module because the technology is super old, and so I let that go. Kept the machine, let the embroidery module and all of the software stuff that I had, I let all of that go. So somebody, if they knew what it was, got a good deal. And if they didn't know what it was, they wouldn't care anyway. You had to have the right machine for it to mean anything to you. Just looking for a bobbin that has, you know, I should just fill a bobbin. I think that's probably, no, we're just going to use what I have. I don't know. My head's too full of junk to think well. I did have a sidewinder at one point, and I honestly, even though I showed how to use it and stuff, I didn't like it. So some people find it very useful. It was not a useful tool for me, the sidewinder. It is a little gadget that you could wind bobbins off the machine. And so I think it's one of those pieces of, one of those gadgets, we'll call it. I think it's one of those gadgets you either like or you don't like. And I was one that it just didn't work for me. I'm used to the technology. I'm used to these machines that work really well. Some people love them though. If you look at any good quilt shop, you also can find them online. Find that fabric line. But if you want it for Christmas, for holiday stuff, you probably should actively look for it, Barbara, because if you don't, it's going to get sold out. It is going to sell out. So, okay, so what we're going to do here is get lined up here where you can see really well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've threaded up my machine. Sorry about my head in the way. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an open toe foot, which means that there is no bridge. There's no bridge here between the toes, which gives me visibility. And so I'm going to do a zigzag stitch, and I'm going to do a very narrow zigzag. And so before I take off and really go crazy, the other thing I want to do is move my needle over. Okay, so I'm just going to test out. You should do this on a separate piece of paper, by the way, or piece of fabric. But I'm not. I'm doing it right on my project. So what I'm going to do is I'm using very thin thread, and this is not a satin stitch. This is a zigzag stitch, but it's really narrow and it's fairly close together, but it is not a satin stitch width or satin stitch length. Sorry, gosh, I can't talk straight today for some reason. Anyway, here we go. So I am stitching on my fabric. I know you can't see it because of I chose thread color that is a really good match for the background of this, but you'll see it more when I get done. If I was kind and thoughtful, I would have used like bright red or something so you could really see the stitching, but apparently I'm not, so there you go. So I'm just going to zig. Most of the stitch is on the words, and then the other stitch coming to the right of the needle swing is just hopefully just beside the fabric. That's the goal anyway. Sometimes I hit it, sometimes I don't. So I'm just going to pretty quickly do this. And the thread I'm using is Aurifil. And Aurifil is a 50 weight thread, so it's a pretty lightweight thread. That's another reason it disappears into the fabric, because it's a pretty lightweight thread. But this is not, this stitching that I'm doing right here is not a construction stitch. This is considered decorative because it's just on the top of something. It's not holding two things together like the seam of your pants or something like that. Okay. So that's one side. So I will show you the stitching here. Okay, so hopefully you see the stitching. You see that? I mean, that thread blended into that fabric so well. That's crazy. I could not have chosen a better color for me, but not necessarily for you. I'm going to do the same thing coming down the other side of my little strip of words. And sometimes the steam seam gets, you can see it on the needle, or you feel it, or the needle doesn't want to work super well. And so if you just rub your fingers down the shaft of the needle, it will usually take that adhesive, that excess adhesive off. You can always use rubbing alcohol to get it, for sure. So I'm going to stitch this real quickly. And this curve is so gentle that I don't have to stop and make adjustments. I can just simply guide the fabric through there. And if the fabric gets in the way, if the throat of the machine is a problem, then I just take my fabric and I just fold it up and get it out of the way. A sewing machine is just a tool. There's nothing to be afraid of or intimidated by, although most of us are when we first start. It's just a tool. and it's an excellent tool for using to complement your mixed media work. And that's the other side, all done. Okay. Can you see this? I don't know if you can see this little gob. See that little gob right there on the back? See that right there? That's adhesive from the Steam-A-Seam. And if you take your fingers and rub your fingers down the shaft of the needle, you can get it off your hands. If you rub your fingers up the shaft of the needle, you are going to be sorry, because you're going to pierce your skin, because those sewing machine needles are sharp, so it will get you. Always run your fingers down the shaft of the needle. Hey, Kathy Whitney. So this is right here. You can probably see the best contrast of the thread here, because this is a little bit darker. Okay, so that is that. All right, we're done with the sewing machine for now. So we will get it. I'll put it back on its little table where it likes to live. It usually lives right here beside me unless I have to get it out of the way. I really appreciate having two machines. This one I bought, it's probably 30 years old, and the other one is probably 20 years old. So these are not new machines by any means. They have greatly changed machines. Definitely have changed machines. Okay, I'm going to talk you through the next part of what I'm going to do with this book. Okay, we're going to talk about it. I'm not really going to show you much on it because it's going to require me to spend a lot of time prepping stuff, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do so you kind of have the concept. And there's going to be drawing time and nonsense like that. So, all right. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about you don't have a sewing machine anymore, you pretend these won't bend enough to use it. Oh, that's too bad. They do have machines that have an on and off push button right by the needle. So you don't have to use your feet or knees. So there is that. Just giving you an idea, Miss Dorothy, just giving you an idea. But you could also take this with the words. If you had something like the words like that, you could just do a little whip stitch by hand. You could do that. Okay, so let's look at the table here. Let me tilt this up a little bit. Okay. Now, the inside of this cover is white, so it's going to make the camera real happy. And you guys. Alright, here is my cover. I have I have folded my signatures. So I have 4 signatures. I decided to make them with watercolor paper. So this is the same watercolor paper that I made the little tree out of. By the way, the links are still up if you want, are still active if you want the tree and the gnomes. They're in the description box below the video. That was too hard. Okay. So this is a 9x12 piece from 9x12 pad of watercolor paper. This is the B paper. It's inexpensive from Walmart. And it is 140 pound, which is it's pretty thick. But I decided to just roll with it, you know. I just decided to roll with it and make a nice chunky journal. So what I did, because on my particular journal I want to have 40 pages, and so I laid it out. I don't think I brought my prototype in here with me. It's in the sewing room down the hall. I made a prototype to start with because I'm clearly challenged when it comes to mathing. So I made a prototype of exactly how many pages I want and exactly how many signatures I want. And the math is not that hard. I'm just not that skilled at math anymore. I used to, I did really well with algebra and stuff like that, but you know what? I just don't want to do that anymore. Anyway, so I took my 9x12 pieces of watercolor paper and I scored them with a stylus and a ruler, and then I folded all of those papers. Now, here's the thing about using thick watercolor paper. We're going to look at one. When you look at this, you see this uneven edge. It's where it creeps. Let's try this one. Okay, see how this creeps forward? Here's the watercolor, the signature. 5 pages is what I have per signature. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to have each day have a 2-page spread. Sometimes those spreads, when it goes from one signature to the next, there may be a gutter between the 2 signatures, and if that happens, I'll just paste a piece of paper or fabric or something over that to get from one page to the next. But anyway, there are 5 pieces of paper folded in half for each signature. There are 4 signatures. Okay, so that gives me the number of pages that I want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this down, or I'm going to tear this down probably, or cut it. I haven't decided yet, but I have decided that I'm going to have my pages be 5.5 inches wide and 8 inches tall. So from the folded edge over, right now it is 9x12. Yeah, so this is 6 inches over here. So I'm going to cut off 1/2 inch from the top page, and then I'm going to probably rip these so that I don't need to worry about trying to make these edges all even with each other. There is just going to be some, because the paper is thick, you end up with this, you got to do the best you can, because the pages being thick want to creep out at the edge. Some people don't care if that creeps. It doesn't bother me a whole lot, but I just don't need the signatures to be quite this wide. And so I'm going to take advantage of that, and probably after I bind the signatures to the cover, probably that's when I will actually tear these down. I haven't decided that yet either. There's a lot of things that are in the category of the great unknown. All right, so I do have my signatures pre-folded, and I laid them on the table, and then I put a ruler up here and I measured them and decided, this was totally by accident, the next part of this, the way that I have the binding strip prepared, totally an accident. Anyway, the next thing I did was I wanted something to give it a little bit, this cover, a little bit of body, but not a lot. And so I took one of those hanging file folders and I decided how big I wanted the cover to be. And in this case, just so you know what my thought process was, I decided to make these for the cover, front and back cover, 6 inches by 8.5 inches. Okay? So this is going to glue. I'm just going to use tacky glue. Again, I'm not doing this part on camera, but I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to glue this to, and probably put a little bit of double-sided tape around the outer edge, just because that helps to hold it real quick and until the glue dries. And I've squared up my cover so it's nice and square at the moment, as long as I don't mess it up too much. So that's going to be my front and back cover. Once that is totally dry, once this is totally dry, then I'm going to, I don't know if I'm going to bind the book, the signatures to this piece first and then glue it in. That may be what I do. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't decided on that part. But what I wanted to show you about this, it was pretty interesting, was on those folders, those hanging file folders, they have these score marks. See that? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 score marks. And I have 4 signatures. And so if I sew the first signature to the first line, that vertical line's already there, and then skip 2 lines and sew in the next one and the next one, there will be 2 spaces between. That gives my 4 signatures, 1 here, 1 there, 1 here, and 1 there. And it's all I have to do is mark the holes for sewing them in. So it's entirely possible that I'm going to sew these signatures to this piece of file folder, and then after they're sewn, glue it in place here. I don't know. I haven't decided. Like I said, I haven't decided yet, because I also need to put a piece of fabric inside this to cover over these 2 pieces of file folder. It's not going to make it super thick, but it's going to give it just enough body that it's going to give it a little bit more than what it has right now. And then these may turn into be flaps, or I don't know. I haven't decided. I truly haven't decided. TBD is correct. 100% correct. So that's where my thought process is at the moment. I've outlined or laid out the center, marked the center of my spine. This is going to go in here. I'm going to let these have a little bit of room, a little breathing room between the cover and the spine, so that when this comes up, it has plenty of room to fold. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But that's kind of my thought process, and I thought, yeah, I'll just take you through the process so far. So those things are ready to rock. This will turn under about like so, and then we'll put my little Christmas tree gnome house is going to go on the front cover. And at this moment, this red hot moment, I'm thinking I'm just going to glue it in place. Don't know that yet either. It's all a work in progress at the moment. Okay? But there you go. That you'll know now you're up to speed with the creation of this project. it is coming together bit by bit as it develops, because that's what we're doing. We're just making it happen as we go. Any questions? Yeah, I can just do whatever. You know, that's the thing about making a journal like this. It is for a holiday. It's a holiday journal. And so it is going to be a substantial book, but I wanted something that I could color in, I could paint in, I could draw in, I can write in. Writing will be more challenging, but I have plenty of notebook paper, lined notebook paper. I like writing on lined paper, quite honestly, or graphed paper. I also have that too. And so I can always do the journaling on, cut up a whole bunch of pages of lined paper or graph paper and have them the right size, and then just take them with me and then journal and then stick them in. Or I bought myself a new stash of Pilot G2 pens in different colors. They have, you talk about catching the creative eye. I was in Walmart the other day. They had a pack of purple, an assortment of purple, an assortment of blues, and an assortment of pinks in the Pilot G2 pens, which are my favorite pen, in the 07. And I was like, yeah, I believe I'll have those. And I did. So I bought them for myself. Yes. Anyway. All right. So no questions from you guys then, right? Okay. So let's go back to the dog. And I'm going to put him up, put the book up on a little slant, because I'm trying to get this dog done so that I can get Christmas cards in the works. And I've done this once, and I decided I wanted to do it again. So there you go. And so that's what I'm doing. Okay, so we're going to take a moment, and this is the one I'm working on. This is the one I did before. So I have choices. Choices are always good. And so I'm going to use my mask here. This is a mask of tracing paper. And I'm going to use a couple of pieces of painter's tape, and I'm going to take some of the sticky off from the painter's tape by putting it on my shirt. And we're going to mask out the dog. And it's not going to be perfect because this dog is a little different than, the shape's a little different than the other one. And I'm just going to put it down, pull it down like this. Okay. If you have any questions, be sure that you put them in the chat in all caps. And I think we're just going to do that and call it good. Okay. I have some, this is a disposable paint palette. And I have some stencils. Some I used before. I'm not sure I used all these before. I may have. I'm not sure. but we're going to use this, which the stencil is Art Is, and it's a Julie Faye-Van-Balzer stencil. Comes in a couple, at least it did come in a couple of different sizes. I don't know if it still does or not. And I'm just going to use some paint. So this is Antique White craft paint. And I'm going to squirt it out on my palette. And I'm going to use some different stencil brushes that I have in my assortment of brushes. Some of them are decent, some of them are not. And so I'm going to use these, and I'm just going to get a hold of some paint. But I don't want very much paint. So I got to make sure that I get most of it off. And then I'm just going to I don't really care whether you can read it a whole lot. I do want it to show a little bit. There we go. And because I have the mask over the dog, it will let me come right up pretty close to the dog. Yeah, it's good enough. And I'm going to come on down. All right. So I'm going to put this on, put the writing on first. And some people, you know, you can twist and turn it or have it lined up across the page. It's totally up to you. If you do something like this, I'm going to have to move this back a little bit. I should have put this across the bottom of the page, not the side of the page, not thinking. Okay. I don't really care whether you can read it, but let's go to the other camera. I think you can see it better, maybe. Oh, Barb. Okay, now hopefully you can see it a little bit. Doesn't have to be anything that's super present. Just enough. Just enough. Background stuff. This stencil brush is for crap. It's all right. I'm gonna make it work. last night we went to a concert. We went to see the group Mercy Me. Have any of you ever seen them, or are you familiar with who that is? It was a pretty long concert. It was very good though, but it took a while. Alright, we're going to put a little bit more paint. Right in here, because for some reason it is not wanting to show up. Here we go. Alright, we're getting somewhere. A little bit more here. Alright, we're going to say that's enough. I'm going to say that's enough because I'm tired of it. I'm tired of doing that. You ever get like that? You just go, okay, that's enough. That's enough. I'm tired of doing that. We're going to go on to the next thing. So anyway, there's a little bit of writing on there. Even though it's hard for you to see it. It's there, I promise. Alright. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to use this stencil, this polka dot stencil. And I'm going to use, let's see, what did I use over here? I used a green, which I'm going to do. We're going to use the citron green. And what was the other color? One of the browns. We'll use a little bit of burnt umber. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to start out and we're going to use citron green, which is a Ceramcoat color. Citron, C-I-T-R-O-N, citron green. We're going to use a different stencil brush and hopefully we get a little bit better results, because those were terrible. That first one was awful. Let's see if this one works any better. So citron green, it's nice limey yellow green. Normally you gotta make sure you don't have too much paint on your stencil brush, but for whatever reason, okay, that is a much better stencil brush. So we're just going to stick some polka dots in here in the background. That's good. I like it. Varying degrees of intensity. So we have a few little polka dots. And some to look like it's there behind the dog. Okay, that works. Good enough. And then we're going to work on around the dog. So putting in the background after the figure is in can be challenging. Or not. If you have a big figure like this dog is pretty good size, then you just cut a mask. Mask it out and put it in afterwards. Okay, good enough. Maybe one more right there. Okay, good enough. Okay. And then I have another piece of another stencil, and this is a different size hole dots. Hello Connie, good to have you join us. So I'm going to use burnt umber. This is the Delta Ceram Coat burnt umber. And I'm going to use the green stencil brush. Since this one worked really well, we're going to use that one. So again, getting not too much paint. And then we're going to put in a different size dot. Let's see. Yeah, it's not great. It's all right. Yeah, it's all right. Okay. So we're just going to put in some smudgy dots. Staying away from the border pattern that's also on this stencil. And like so. You can also do some of these kinds of things with your fingers. You don't have to use a brush if you don't want to. You can use your fingers. Okay, good enough. So we have lots of polka dots on there. And then I'm going to come back with Sea Breeze, which is one of the original background colors. And I'm going to go back to the bigger dots. I would use even a different size dot, except I have moved all my stuff. All my stencils are in a different room at the moment. And so we're going to have to do it old school. We got to do it old school, and we got to just use what we have. So some of this is just to tone down a little bit of what we have going on. Let some of the things be what they are, some of the colors be as strong as intense as they are, and others we're just going to tone them down a little bit. Okay. Push it in the background a little bit. Okay. And let's see, anything else I want to do here? Okay. So I think we've got some varying degrees of things happening. All right, I think we're okay. I can always come back and do some more later if I need to. Just chasing some of these into the background just a little bit more. when in doubt, just go in with the brush. Okay, I think we can do that. I think we can. The background should be in the background. Some of these are a little forward, so I'm just going to go straight with the brush. Okay. All right. It's a little more intense to you guys on camera than it is here. That's all right. It's okay. Don't you love it how we always say to ourselves and everybody else, like, we need to reassure everybody that it's okay. It's okay. All right. Bye, Joan. Good to see you. All right. The next thing I want to do is I want to polka dot his hat. And I'm going to, let's see, that may not be as red as I want. Let's see. Is this the same color? Alright, I'm going to put some of this on the palette and see which one of these is the color I want. They're very similar. They're very similar. So when in doubt, we're going to put a little orange in with them because I want some contrast to the red of his hat, because we're going to polka dot his hat. This orange is, we're going to go for yellow because the orange is about dried up. Let's see if we can, let's see if we can make a different color polka dot here. I think my brain is full of snot at the moment. TMI, I know. Okay, we're going to put a little bit more yellow in with that. I may have gotten too much, but you know, is what it is. When you mix paint, one of the ways to get paint to cooperate and mix up, and craft paint is really tough to mix because it's got so many binders and all that stuff in it. It's really hard to get predictable results. But scoop and smash, as opposed to stirring like this, you can stir forever and you're not going to get the color combined. But if you scoop and smash, that's, you have a much better shot at getting the colors to accurately combine. Okay, so let's use, we're going to use a stylus. This is a Martha Stewart stylus. And we're going to dot his hat. Once the dots are dry, then I'll come back and I will shade it. Yeah, those will show up. Okay. When you're doing polka dots, if you want every polka dot the same size, which I don't really care, that if you do care, then you need to dip the stylus or the dotting tool every single time you're going to make a dot. I don't care that much, so I'm not going to dip it every single time. And if the dots are going around the head, like toward the back of the hat, let those dots be, it will help with perspective if you let those dots get smaller. I have enough dotting orange to dot a whole bunch of hats. We don't have a whole bunch of hats, we have one. So we have lots. Okay, and then maybe one right there. And maybe some other smaller ones here. Okay, now that needs to dry. That is so true, Terry. When your body goes into defense mechanism, which means that it is it's trying to carry all the offenders out of your body. It goes into defense mode. Yeah, boy, does it get... Sometimes you go into that histamine response, and boy, it just, your body can just make such a mistake. And you know, it goes, oh, danger, danger, danger. It's like the Will Robinson thing. Danger, Will Robinson. Danger, danger. You know, and you're like, oh, for heaven's sakes, it's not that big of a deal. All right, we're going to use green and red, so I need a green. You have red, we know that. All right, we'll see whether this... I know I have more green paint here, but I don't know where it is at the moment. So we're going to see whether this paint's any good. It's Green Clover is the name of it. Sounds like it ought to be good, doesn't it? So we're going to put some green clover. It is very green, green clover. And we may use a little bit of this citron. See, try to keep this out of my polka dots that I just made. That will take a minute. It will take a minute for those polka dots to dry, so let's see if I can keep out of it. Alright, so there is a green. There's some brown over here. We'll just stick that in there just to alter that green a little bit. Okay, well, it doesn't look too bad. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stripe the scarf. The same reason that I polka dotted the hat first is if you do the trim, do this stuff, this trimming business, the polka dots and the stripes, if you do that first and then you go back and do the shading, it makes it look more natural. So I'm just thinning the paint down with water, and I'm using a script brush or a liner brush. Okay, it's amazing how small your table gets. I'm just looking at how I did the stripes on the other one. All right, we're gonna just simply stripe this. Yeah, it's all right. That is okay. And we're going to let them be kind of wonky. Kind of wonky stripes. And back here at the, like where it goes around the body, they're going to curve. Same thing on this side, but they're going to curve the other direction. And as they get toward the center of the body, they're going to get straighter. And then curve the opposite direction. And then I'm going to put just a couple of stripes going around. All right, here we go. Let's see how we do on this. Okay. Good enough for some green stripes. And now we're going to do some red stripes. And it doesn't matter which one of these reds we use because they're both pretty much the same color. Same thing. I rinsed out the brush, and then I'm going to use water and script liner. Get the paint where it's inky in consistency. And then I'm just going to pick a spot where I want to put the red stripe. Eventually I will outline all this in black because it's meant to be an illustration, not a portrait. But that's going to happen when he's all done. All right, and now we're going to go the horizontal stripes. Okay, there we go. Good enough. All right, so that needs to dry. And I don't know if our polka dots are dry yet, so we're going to ignore the polka dots for now. And the other thing I want to do is I need to add some more highlight type color and stuff into his face. And so we're going to go to I'm going to use some raw sienna and some antique white. And I'm going to kind of pick those two colors up together because we need a little more difference in his face. What color is this? Buttermilk. I don't want that. I want antique white. You know your paint is not in great shape when the binder comes out and not the paint. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing. Mix up the raw sienna and some antique white together. So it's not totally brown, but it's not jumping straight to the antique white. Nice and thin. And we're going to give him some lighter color. And we'll see. When you have it going the wrong direction, then just turn your book around. Okay, and then get some more of the color coming in from his other cheek here. Trying to keep it on the color that is originally put down, not letting it go outside the lines if possible. There we go. All right. Okay. And now I'm going to go straight to the antique white. So I rinsed out my brush and I went straight to antique white. So it's just the white color on the brush. And I'm going to see if I can get a few finer hairs on his eyebrows. Eyebrow hairs. Okay, just a few. And then I'm going to use some of the darker brown, because what I'm trying to get here is contrast of color. And so I'm going to go to the burnt umber, which was that dark brown we used a minute ago. Same thing, watered down with the to an inky consistency with the script brush. So you can see it right here. And let's see. Just some suggestions of hair. I don't know if you can even see that. And a little bit around his face, just a little bit. I had some on the other side, but I didn't have it on this side over here. Okay, and a few over here on this ear. Sorry if my head gets in your way here. Okay, all right. I think I'm liking it better than the other one, but like I said, I have choices if I need to. If I decide the other one's better, then I'll use the other one, you know, but it's always good to paint something more than once. Okay, so we got a few little hairs there. Suggestions of hair. Alrighty, now he needs a tear duct because they just do. So I'm going to mix a little bit of red with a little bit of the antique white to get this kind of pink color. And this is going to go in the inner corner. Of the eye on each side. It just helps that eyeball to have more shape. So you can see that. All right. What else? Okay, I think what we're going to do at this point is I'm going to shade the, oh, we didn't dot the hat well, or the fur of the hat. That's okay, we'll do that later. I'm going to go ahead and shade his hat up here because this is dry. All right, let's, I'm just going to use the burnt umber, I think. We're going to use burnt umber. I just need to find my brushes, which are hiding under the palette, of course, because where else would you be besides under the palette? All right. And I'm going to shade his hat, and then we're going to be done for today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to side load the brush. So I wet the brush, dampen, dab it off on a paper towel. Use the long corner of the brush, dip it in the shading color, blend it on the palette until you have color on part of the brush but not the whole brush. The other brush I have in my hand is wet, and I've dabbed it off on the paper towel. Okay, so one brush puts the color, the shading color down. The other one comes right behind it and blends the inner edge of that color, that shading color. Okay. Same thing, going the rest of the way. You can't go too far because this is acrylic paint and it's very thin and it dries real fast. So little short strokes. Oops. If you put it where you didn't want it, if you're quick enough, you can get it back off, and if not, you could just come back in and you just paint over the top of it. Okay, and then this part back here is the part that's kind of slouchy. You always put the shading color on the part that's underneath. Blend. It's better if you have a coat of sealer of some kind under you, but I don't have that because I didn't get that done. And so we're just gonna just keep going for it, and I bet we can make it work. This is on the kind of the tail of the hat, behind the ear, so the ear kind of pops up off the hat. And right here where it goes into the pom-pom. And I think I need a little bit more where it meets the ear. It's better. Okay, that's better. And I'm going to put a little bit Alrighty, I think that's coming together where I can live with it. Alright, so I think his little hat has got some shape to it now. And his ear sticks up in front of it, and so that's good. We're good there. Alright, what else do we want to do? I'm going to shade this scarf down here. I am going to have to hunt up a different green, however. Alright, so I'm going to use this dark Hauser green is what I'm going to use. I'm going to find a little space on my palette here. And I'm going to do the same thing. You'll notice there's some dots in here. That's what was on the page when we started. So that's just going to be added. That's just going to be bonus something or other. We'll make it work. Okay. Hauser green. Making the same thing that I did with the brown, but this time it's with the green. And I'm going to let that come around the ruff of his white fur. And that actually can come all the way over there. That's okay. Alright, and the other brush, the damp brush, just comes behind it and blends so we don't end up with a hard edge. And I'm going to keep going. Let's see if this brush has any, yeah, it still has some paint left in it. Just about get us all the way over to the other edge. Okay. And that's not quite as much green as I wanted, so we're going to have to let that dry just a second. It won't take it long. See how much darker this is right here? So that gives you a lot more dimension, a lot more suggestion of shape. And so I'll come back and detail that out again. Sometimes you just don't know how the color is going to dry out, and so you have to give it a moment. To see what color it's really going to be once it dries. But hopefully you can see that. Okay. All right, I'm going to knock off here in about a second. Let me just finish this. Shading with this scarf here. We're just about done. All right, I'm going to come along this bottom edge because what I want is this scarf to look like it's kind of bulging out in the middle. So by putting shading color on both long edges and then making sure that that light color stays light and bright in the middle, it will help give you that impression of that scarf kind of rolling over. And I'm going to give a similar, but maybe not as much, on the edges of the scarf that's folded over under his face. There we go. Okay. I think that'll do it for the moment. So let's go to the other camera so you can see a little different angle. All right, still got some work to do on him, but he's coming along. I kind of like the lighter color on him. We'll see. We'll see. I can always change my mind. The magic does, it really does. The shading is a magical kind of effect. It makes everything go three-dimensional. It just does. So from a distance, you can see a little bit more. So there's a danger in going too far in putting too much detail when you want something to maintain an illustrative quality. So things will sharpen up a lot when I go in to do the outline around him, which will help to also make him much more cartoon-like, which is what I'm after. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see what he does. Thanks for being with me today. I will be back on Monday evening. We have the time change coming up, not this weekend, but the next weekend. So check it'll be the I think the 3rd of November, I think, when the time change affects you guys. Let me look. Yeah, the 3rd of November is when it's going to affect you all. So that's when our time will be changed here. Okay? All right. Enough said. Thanks for being here. I will see you before you know it. Remember to get creative today because you know it's easy. And I will see you on Monday. Bye for now.